we are going to jump over to the buyer agency panel. I love it. Pass out cards. Robert, if I could ask you to come up. We have an awesome panel from down south, South Jersey, and one of the reasons that I wanted to have Robert come up is, first of all, he's one of the best managers that we have in our company, period. He's one of the best leaders in the state. It's the truth. I love you. But the truth is like, he was a past president of New Jersey Realtors. You just hold down the South, I feel like. You have a good team around.
I like to call it the South, Mike.
You might want to turn that on. I know.
We don't like to call it the South.
What do you like to call it? The Shore?
We consider ourselves to be the Jersey Shore, Central.
Oh, I understand.
Because look, Spring Lake is the furthest south we go, and that's certainly not that far down. So
this is a quick aside and fun. I own a lot of real estate in Ocean Grove. And
Ocean Grove.
So
the dry town.
No, please. So I love it down there, and every time I say I'm headed south or whatever, they all look at me like this guy, like a foreigner. So I appreciate it. All right, I'm going to turn it over to him to speak to this because he's been at the forefront of this, even on a state level, in dealing with the legislative issues and everything else, and what New Jersey Realtors pushed for. So I appreciate all you've done for us in New Jersey, for the real estate community as a whole, and I'm excited.
All right,
to turn this over.
All right, so I'm going to welcome up my panel. We are short one. Sean Bremer wasn't feeling well this morning, so he's unable to join us. But if I could ask Grace Talarico to come up and take a seat. Palmese, take a seat. The Cusano team, please come take a seat. And where's Deanna? Oh, and Miss Deanna Anderson from our Princeton office.
You guys gotta get mic'd up just to catch it.
Oh, she's gonna do that.
This feels like the dating game.
So give him a second to get mic'd up. Good? Good?
Yep.
Do you have one?
No.
Oh, every other?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know 6 minutes.
All right. So let's start by introducing yourself, where you're from, how long you've been in the business.
Deanna Anderson. I'm out of the Princeton office. I've been in for 11 years.
11 years.
Microphone.
I apologize. I gotta grab
I'm just trying to. There you go.
Sorry about that. I'm Deanna Anderson, and I'm out of the Princeton office, and we are definitely not South Jersey. We are Central Jersey. And I've been in the business for 11 years.
I'm Mark Cusano from the Middletown office. Next week I'll be starting my 11th year. I'm partners with my wonderful wife next to me, and we've created a great team.
I'm Cathy Cusano, and I'm from the Middletown office. I've been doing this for over 25 years, and love it, loving every minute of it.
18 years with Coldwell Banker only, and Dawn Morrow is the best manager.
Okay.
I have to debate that.
Grace Talarico, I'm in the Spring Lake office. I've been in real estate for 15 years, Coldwell Banker 3.
Great job.
Did somebody say something? So, so I asked you before we started with the questions, I asked you guys to share what your greatest strength is. Grace?
My greatest strength is probably staying in touch with my clients and building a great referral system.
Okay. Luce?
communication, attention to detail, and knowing the market.
My greatest strength is making buyers feel comfortable enough to stay with us, and to also negotiate a great price for them on homes, and to get them the property.
You just do what Cathy says?
We're already starting. No, I'm teasing. My greatest strength, I'm very analytical. I'm a numbers nerd. I go deep into numbers and show a buyer why it's a great thing to buy a home, and show them the cost that they're going to put into the home, how the value will be there. So I'm very happy with that.
Deanna?
All of the above. All of the above. No, I realized shortly after being in real estate that it has nothing to do with houses, it has to do with people. And I truly enjoy helping people, whether they're buying a $250,000 house or a $2 million house, and I try and make that come through in every real estate relationship I develop. So I'm just constantly making them, managing their expectations and communicating. And so.
Okay, great. So we'll get right into it. So after the NAR settlement and all of the brands settled the lawsuit back from 2019, on August 1st, our lives really changed dramatically. The New Jersey Realtors worked with legislation and created law called the CEPA law, the Consumer Protection Enhancement Act. And under that law that went into effect on August 1st, one of the things that took effect was buyer agency agreements, finally decoupling agency relationships. You now had to have representation just like you do with a listing. So buyers need their own representation, sellers need their own representation. It was a shock. It meant we had to change the way that we do business every day, right? And in a blink of an eye. Because on August 1st, the rule went into effect, the law went into effect, and next thing you know, MLSs across the state took away compensation. We no longer had any idea what was going to happen, who was going to offer, how much they were going to offer, when they were going to offer, because it was all about negotiation, right? Commissions are negotiable right up until the end of the transaction. So it was a new way of having to do business and having to deal with buyers, right? We now had to have consultations with buyers before we put them in a car and took them and showed a property, right? We actually had to have them sign an agreement, just like a listing. And for many of these agents, they were scared to death. What are we going to do? How am I going to do this? You know, they're flying by the seat of their pants, right? Well, here we are 8 months later after that law has gone into effect, and today we're going to hear from some of these agents who have adopted and adapted to all these changes. What works for them, what doesn't work for them, and they're going to share with you some of their tips and tricks, right? So I have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask each one of them. The first one, so again, on August 1st, the new Consumer Enhancement Protection Act went into effect. My first question is, were you prepared? How did you handle your first few buyer transactions, and what steps did you take? Go ahead, Deanna.
I sat in the wrong seat, didn't I?
No, I'll skip around.
I was, shout out to Global Banker. I felt like I was prepared because we started way back in the spring with webinars and, working on our perfect pitches and all that kind of stuff. And we absolutely were way ahead of the game. I, every year, host Cranberry Day. It's a big local fair. And that's in September, the first week in September. And I prepared a little booklet that talked about the changes and what it meant and explained buyer agency. And I had so many people who came to my table and I talked to them about it and they said, you know what, thank you. Nobody's been able to explain this to us. So, a little, my own initiative, but also Global Banker preparing us, I think made a big difference. So, I stumbled a little bit, mainly forgetting to bring the agreement in the car. So now they're like right there with my Scotch tape for putting a sign on the door for the open house. But, I felt like I was prepared and you can't be afraid of it.
Right. Luz, how about you?
Yeah, just like she said, you can't really be afraid of change, and if you familiarize yourself with the agreement and feel confident enough about talking about it, you shouldn't have a problem.
So did you feel confident in the beginning?
Yes, and it, like she said, it was because of Cola Banker that we were trained way before, ahead of time, that we have to use it, so.
Mark and Kath?
I felt a little off with it in the beginning, and then, we did have the training and everything. The people that we were working with, the customers we had, we let them know ahead of time what was coming down the road. Then when you had new people, we would explain over the phone, or when we met them, and we would start out with a single agency agreement with new people, and then until they met us and got comfortable with us, and then we moved on to an exclusive. So that's my take.
Thanks for taking my answer. I wasn't as nervous because being a team and what we bring to the table to the client, how successful we've been, I was pretty comfortable. But I do have to give a shout out that Cole Baker was awesome in preparing us. I mean, you guys really, every week we were hearing, we would go to Ellen, we had Al and Dan throwing stuff at us. It was great. So we absorbed it, and we communicated with our buyers very closely. We gave them all the time we needed. And we always followed up with an email with in great detail what's going to happen.
Okay.
And it's not a big deal because it's always built in the price.
Grace?
Oops, I don't know if this is working. I definitely felt prepared. I'm not a huge fan of change, as a lot of us aren't. But what I decided to do was learn as much as I could about this so that I could very easily convey this information to the buyer and make them really comfortable with anything that they were signing. I felt that the education and the knowledge, having that was key to being able to explain it properly to the buyer, because you're asking them to sign something and most buyers are like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not signing that. And
Especially when you're asking me to pay your compensation.
right. So there were, there were a lot of things that I did that worked for me, a lot of different ways I prepared the listing agreement to make everybody comfortable, and nobody signed anything they weren't comfortable with. So I felt very prepared, but it wasn't my first, I will say the first buyer's agency agreement that I had a client sign, I left money on the table. I didn't ask for as much as I should have. I settled, and that has not happened again. So I now make sure that the percentage that's in there is what I want to get paid, and this way I control what I get paid and not the listing agent.
So in keeping with that, how did the buyers, when you were having these initial conversations right after everything had gone into effect, how were the buyers responding, right? Were they saying, what are you talking about? How, as much as you might have presented to them, did they really grasp the concept of what had changed? And like, what do you mean I have to pay? Why do I have to pay your fee, right?
So my experience was that the majority of people knew that something happened, but there was a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of assumptions, a lot of misinformation out there. And it was our job to really clarify that for them and make sure that they understood it. So once I was able to explain everything, and I think people were actually relieved that they weren't necessarily paying all of the commission, that there was a good chance that the seller was going to be paying some commission, and therefore whatever I decided was my compensation for this, they may have to make up the difference. They were okay with that. I think they were actually relieved that they weren't necessarily going to be 100% responsible. They might be, but they weren't. It wasn't completely going away from the seller's side, that there were options.
Bruce, anything?
Just one thing, I think if they understand what your value is or what you bring to the table, then you'll have an easier time, and the way you approach it, you'll have an easier time having them sign and understand what they're signing.
And shouldn't promoting your value be something easy for everybody? Because you're promoting your value when you're on a listing appointment. Why not to be able to do it on a buyer appointment?
Correct.
But yet so many are uncomfortable with it.
I mean, there are situations where the buyer literally cannot afford to pay the commission, and those situations are first-time home buyers.
Right.
So you have to kind of, work around that and make sure you put that into the list, into the contract, so that the seller knows that they're gonna have to pay the commission if they want the deal to work.
Deanna?
What was the question?
So in that initial time when you're working, did the buyers really understand what you were trying to explain to them?
I think initially they were very, very confused, and I said, what was the question? Because my brain went somewhere else when we were talking. Because to me, it's all about presenting your value. And
Yep.
what I've been doing, and I'm going off your question too.
Go ahead.
Is when I first meet somebody, whether it's because I connected at an open house or it's a call-in or I believe from an online source, I'll do a single property representation, the first or second showing. But once I meet them, the very first time I meet them, then I start sending them emails. I created all these templates for emails about the home buying process and the mortgage process and all those things, so that I'm already establishing them with them and I have a value. So by the time I meet them the third time, it's easier to get that exclusive agreement established. And buyers, they bounce, right? They're all over the place. They're, this agent, that agent, because they think they're doing the best thing for themselves. But I try to get them to understand that once you're working with somebody and I see the houses you like and the houses that you're pulling up and the houses that we've made 2 or 3 offers on, we're a team and you have to have that exclusive relationship. It makes the best sense for yourself. So at first it was difficult, they were scared, but I think if you show the value, they start to learn.
Okay. Mark, Kath?
So the initial,
Hold on one second.
For Lucy, how do you overcome that issue with that first-time buyer who doesn't have the money? So I can tell my son in Florida.
So, the ones that I've had 2 so far. So the ones that I've had to roll it into the price of the home. So you offer a little bit more money on the home, and you offer the seller to pay the commission.
And you use your mortgage partner to explain that exactly how it's going to affect the payment. Mark, Kath?
so, at first, obviously, they were taken back. But when you sit and you talk with them and you walk them through the whole process, and the great thing I have to say, which I was very impressed, a lot of sellers are giving compensation.
Sure.
There's very few that we've come across that have.
There's some rogue ones out there.
So, we do 2.5%, and you get a 1.5%, so you try to break it down, so the 1%. An $800,000 borrower, so you try to explain it's $8,000. You could handle it a few different ways. You could take the $8,000 less and put that forward, or take it away from your mortgage. And yes, mortgage reps are very important in this process, especially with the first-time home buyers. Even if you have to see if you can creep them up a little bit higher, put a little less money down. But once you get done talking to them, and it becomes a comfort thing, and you break it down to the dollar amount instead of like, oh my God, 1%. It's a different, and it's worked very well for us.
Yes, as Mark was saying, you get people familiar with you, get them comfortable with you, trusting you, and also you let them know that a lot of this is built into the price anyway, and it's always been built into the price that you're offering for the property. And the main thing is to get you the property, that overall, this is gonna be over a 20-year, 30-year mortgage. So it should, it's not something it's not upfront money. A lot of them don't understand that, the first-time buyer. How am I going to pay you? How do you get your money? So once we explain that Coldwell Banker is a 2.5% commission that we get, and that most of the time the seller will contribute, that you're not paying the full commission in most cases. And if you are, and if we have to work something out where they can't afford it, and we do have to take less, and if they're paying out 2%, if we have to take less for people that are first-time home buyers and things like that, we will do that.
You'll continue to negotiate.
Yes.
So moving on, when the MLS rules changed after the law was enacted on August 1st, I think most of the MLSs across the state probably removed compensation about 2 weeks later. And so when the compensation was removed, did you have any difficulty learning if or what amount of compensation was being offered? Did this affect your initial buyer agency agreements?
In the beginning, it did. did affect us a little bit because you were so used to seeing the compensation on the listing. Then when you were going out and showing properties after you had your agency agreement signed, you go to 2 houses and I turn around and say, oh my God, I don't even know if they're offering anything in this. So, but most of the time, I feel like even if they're not offering anything out, you can negotiate it into the contract.
Okay. Luce?
It didn't affect the agreement. What was the problem is trying to get, not any of the Coldwell Banker agents, but it was trying to get a hold of the agents to find out what the BAC was. But other than that, it wouldn't affect the buyer's agreement.
Grace?
Oh, sorry.
I don't know if this works yet. I haven't had any problems getting agents to respond. I think it actually has encouraged agents to have conversations, which I think have kind of gone by the wayside. So it's kind of nice to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, showing your property, are you, find out about are there any offers? Like, you actually have a conversation again with the listing agent. And then you ask if there's a buyer agent's commission. Typically, I will hang up the phone first and I will text it so that I get it in some sort of print. But I haven't had any problems at all with that.
Okay. Deanna?
No, I haven't had any problems at all. And I make a habit at this point to call and figure out what it is before I hit the ground.
We saw early on that, sometimes when the call was made to the listing agent, they would give you a vague answer to say, if your offer requires compensation, just put it in the contract, and weren't, defining an actual amount, right? So that just added to the level of frustration for a lot of buyer agents, because now they weren't sure, right? So going to the next question, here we are 8 months later. Tell me some of the things that you've adopted from the rule changes into your client relationships. Share with us some of those success stories. Mark, go ahead. You got it, Mark.
Okay, well, 8 months later, probably about 90% of the clients we work with have an idea how it's going down. But it's funny, last couple of months, and I'm a senior, couple senior couples had no clue about it. So we really have to go in deep and explain to them and tell them it's going to be okay, we're going to get this done, we're going to find you a house and make that happen. And they understood it, and again, I break it down to dollars. I think it's a good way to do it. Listen, you're buying a lifestyle, if it's $5,000, $6,000, they got very comfortable with it. But I do have this success story is kind of funny because it just happened. We were coming home about 2 months ago, and the phone rang in the car, and it was a client that Cathy's worked with in the past, and myself, and she says, hey, are you guys available to come meet us at an open house in Homedale? And we said, sure, so we knew the address. So we said, we'll talk about the buyer's agreement when we get there. I hung up the phone. So we meet there, we pull up, the place is crowded. It's really crowded, it was one girl's court in Homedale. And so Cathy says, well, before we go in, we have a single buyer's agreement we need to sign. We didn't know the part that Cusano's doing for life, and they didn't want to sign anything. So we said, okay, you guys go into the open house, okay, and we'll come in a few minutes after, we'll talk to the agent and get some information. So we knew it was 1.5%. So we come down, they're walking down the driveway, and she's getting, Cathy goes to me, she goes, oh, they got to put an offer in. So they said, what's about the buyer agreement? So we wanted 2.5%, and we're like, wow. So we told them, well, good thing is they're paying 1.5%. So move forward, we won the offer at 8 bids, and we closed on Friday. Yeah, that was really great. I mean, that just came out of a right field.
That's good. Very good.
And the other thing is, they did say to us, we did go out with another agent. They said, you weren't available last week, we went out with another agent, and they never told us anything about the paperwork. So we were saying, well, these are new rules, and this is the law. You have to sign paperwork before anybody shows your property.
Unbelievable.
Right. That's. I mean, I'm sure that's happening across the state where agents just they're putting the buyer agency agreement in the contract, right, when they're ready to send it out for DocuSign, and they're not explaining anything. So, Luce, any?
What was I going to say? I think that just like Cathy, I think that like the buyer's agreement, I always use the exclusive one. I really never use any of the other ones because if a buyer doesn't want to work with me, then I don't want to work with them. And it's always 3% for me, as long as I explain to them that it is negotiable. It doesn't mean that that's what they're going to be paying me. But But you have to show your value, and I always bring with me, I send out the buyer's guide, I email the buyer's guide, and I email the buyer's agreement prior to showing, and then when I get to the showing is when they sign, but now we have that new app that
Right.
we use as well. So that's what I've changed since this started.
Well, that's going to be my next
And
question.
it's worked, so.
Okay. Grace?
I don't know, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, so you said you put 3% with your buyers, but then you say it's negotiable. So now you have a signed agreement. You get a deal and they're only going to pay out 1.5%. Now you have to bring your buyer up 1.5%. Are you changing your buyer agreement?
Yes. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm not gonna walk away from a deal off of a 0.5%. That's a damn
Exactly.
sure. So yeah, as long as you explain that to
You will adjust accordingly.
I will adjust accordingly. Correct.
And just to point out though, because I try and educate my agents in my office every day because, you can always negotiate down. You can't negotiate up, right? Because we've had a couple in the office where they did the agreement, for 2%. And come to find out, the property they settle on, seller's compensating 2.5. So now they're like freaking out. What do I do? What do I do? I got to rip that up and have a new one done. You can't do that, right? You just shot yourself in the foot for a half a point because the seller is the winner here. And your buyer, if you go ahead up a half a point, the buyer's going to look at you like, why should you get that? Right? I should be the one getting it. So it's always good to be able to start high and negotiate down if you have to, right?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I have a follow-up for everybody. So you all do your buyer's agreement and you put in, say you all do 3 or 2.5. I'd like to know, I know you all have great success stories. How many would you say, or percentage would you say, you've adjusted down to accommodate your clients?
Good question.
Very, very few. I think maybe one.
We did one because the client did 6 transactions with us in 6 years.
Do you ever find a client that is just at their limit, that between, the price of houses and the multiple offers and so forth, that they've reached as far as they can go?
No, just repeat the question.
I'm here. Go sit down.
So my question is, do you ever find a time where your agreement, you're bringing the price down, right? That was my first part for your client. But then in the market where the prices are so high, where multiple offers, interest rates are high, everyone feels stretched, they're competing in a silent auction half the time on a house, and they say to you, I can't go any higher I can't cover that commission and I really want the house. I can't go 8,000 higher. Do you ever come across that, or do you just go, my professional fee is my professional fee and this isn't the house for you? Do you?
It happened one time for Catherine and I, and we leaned on the lender. We got him involved. So it helped. It turned out to be $6,200. So what they did, they structured the loan now, $6,200 less. And he kind of was able to work the money in there and get him that little bit of bump. But that's how, we lean on lenders a lot.
Ellen?
What if, I think the question is, what if you lean on the lender to do that, but the monthly payment that comes out to be is still higher than what your client could afford, the buyer could afford? Then do you?
I wouldn't go from a 3% to a 1%. Obviously, if it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work.
Well, that's extreme, yeah. for
Yeah,
sure.
that's extreme. Like if I had to take off 1%, that's probably my top. I would do it to put the deal together. And that also, like, I'm dealing with a lot of listings where they're selling their homes and buying. I don't mind doing that at all because I'm getting paid twice,
So
right?
realistically, we're all kind of doing that.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because again, like you heard earlier, with first-time home buyers, a lot of times that is the breaking point for them, especially if they have to come up with that extra 1%.
We hear a lot of conversation about
what's your worth, your professional fee, don't come down, that's your worth, what's your value, and we do have that, but we also have to maintain a balance with the buyers.
Well, it's also the first time that we're dictating what we want to get paid.
Right.
So if you don't want to reduce that by 1%, then so be it, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So,
And there's an agent on every corner.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Also, just as a manager and looking at the transactions that come in, you're not oftentimes losing it for that 0.5% extra that you're asking. There's always that rogue buyer that went up whatever percentage. Maybe 650 was the price everybody else came in and maxed at, and then you have the 680 person. Your 0.5% or what you were demanding as a buyer's agent is not what broke it. And caused them not to get it. So I wouldn't reduce automatically.
Mine was hypothetical.
I'm looking at you unfortunately, you're right behind me.
Hey, and just to let you know, that particular client that we were talking about, we worked with them before, and they told us, we don't want you to take less, you've done so much for us. And, the lender was great with it. He squeezed it in there where it wasn't, you weren't talking a lot of money. Talking, I think, $17 a month it was.
Deanna, Grace, anything to add?
I mean, I've been fortunate. I have not had to reduce my commission. What I've agreed with the buyer, even if the seller wasn't paying that, they've made up the difference. And I've kind of explained to them that after 15 years in the industry, I'm not taking a pay cut. So we used to make a lot more 15 years ago, and then it went, I don't know if we're allowed to talk percentages anymore. And then we went down to another percentage. And now it seems like if the sellers are offering, which most of them are, it's at a lower percentage than what I was making. And yet I think my value is my value and my experience that I bring to the table to get the client the house at a reasonable offer is worth what I'm getting paid now. And I've had 2 instances this year where the buyer has had to pay me 0.5%, and one was a first-time home buyer, and another was a senior. And we're not talking big dollar houses, under $500,000. And both of them were thrilled and felt that it was very fair and that I was worth it. So that was kind of a nice, now it's kind of given me the confidence, because in the beginning I didn't. I was kind of willing to settle with, if the seller was at least paying me X percentage, I was okay. Well, now I'm not. And when I'm not getting not getting the kickback from the negativity from the buyer, I love the buyer's agency agreement. I'll just go out there and say that right now. I think that, number one, we have the chance to make a higher commission. We're in control of our commissions. And I think it has elevated us as professional realtors because we have contracts now. We're not just like rogue agents opening doors for people, which I think a lot of people thought that realtors were glorified door openers. Now it's like, no, we sit down, we have a conversation, we sign a contract. We have a relationship now. And I think they respect us a little bit more because of that.
And getting back to what Robert was saying, how somebody lost some of their commission, what we have been typically doing, we have been letting our buyers know that we are putting in a 3% commission, but if we have to negotiate that so they do get the property and the other side isn't giving out anything, we are willing to negotiate it with them down to maybe 2.5% if we had to. But if they were giving out 3%, we want to make sure that we do get that 3% and it's not left on the table.
Deanna?
I haven't been in a position yet where I've had to deal with this. I haven't had the disparity, but I came to one of the last masterminds and it was Jill and Frank, and you're like, Jill, 3%. It's 3%. What do you mean it's not 3%? You don't charge 3%. I always charge 3%. And I thought to myself, why aren't I asking for 3%?
Right.
How many times has a buyer said to you, well, oh, the commission is 3%, right? And I said, yeah, no, it's 2.5 on your agreement. I think you have to aim high and then be a good business person and figure out how to deal with it.
one of the things that, as a manager, one of the things that, I share with my agents, repeat to my agents, year after year after year, is that, as a listing agent, you can control your compensation, right? Well, now, as of August 1st, 2024, as a buyer's agent, you can control your compensation. So it's a win-win for you in this business, right? Because now you can control both sides of the transaction. And so if you're not writing your agreements for the maximum amount and holding strong to that amount and proving your value, then you're foolish, right? And yes, just like a listing, right? You go in at 1% or at X percentage, and you may have to negotiate it. Years ago, we used to call them graduated splits or graduated compensation, right? If I get you, Mr. Seller, if I get you X price, I've done my job, you'll pay me the 6%. If the best offer we get is $25,000 less, but the best terms, best dates, right? I'll cut my commission or I'll negotiate my commission by 1/4 point, 1/2 point. It's no different with the buyers. But if you start writing your buyer agency agreements at 2%, you're going to lose. You're going to lose money. You're going to leave money on the table. So my next question is, what tools or talking points are you using to show your value to the buyers? How do you set yourself apart from everybody else? Grace, go ahead.
I'm fortunate that I've decided to run my business by referral. So about 95% of my business comes from either referral partners or referral clients. So the majority of the people who come to me have already heard from my former clients about my work ethic. So I have an advantage there. My clients have become like walking, talking billboards for me. So when I do receive a new client, a buyer, a seller, the majority of them are already like, oh my gosh, we heard, blah, 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 blah. So they're already engaged. I also then explain to them what I'm going to do for them before the transaction, during the transaction, and after the transaction. So people that I sold houses to 15 years ago, they still hear from me. So I'm not the agent that goes away. So, I mean, that's, people like that. It's all relationship.
Deanna?
I think I get the hang of this by now. Like I said before, it's all systems and staying in constant touch with them. Before you ask the question about a success story, I think a small success story for me and something that I'm continuing to work on is take those open houses seriously, because you need to take the time with each person, if you can. I mean, I had one the other day that had 30 people come through. That
Right.
looked a bit of a mess, but take the time in an open house to get to know people, what they're looking for, and you'd be shocked. Like I have people that call me months later, we met you in an open house and we want you to represent us.
And you're like, who the hell are you?
Exactly. My database. But yeah, no, that's been really successful. And because they've been getting emails and stuff from me, they're like, all right, we're just going to call her. So I think that's been one of the success stories about buyer agency.
Okay. Kat?
I think our success is we're a team, and people like to see two people together. We're very accessible. If you can't reach one, you can reach the other. We make sure that we are very in tune to our buyers as far as what they're looking for, and we try not to go over, above what they can afford. And that, again, I think they like that we're a team.
Okay.
We negotiate very
Now
well.
back to the question. What tools or talking points are you using to show your value to your buyers, and how do you set yourself apart?
That would be, on my end, I let them know our experience, our background, that we're great with negotiating, and that we're very knowledgeable of the area. Mark is very good with RPR and with Moxie to show them what the prices of the homes in the neighborhood are going for, and to also let them know that if they buy a home that isn't completely fixed up, that if they put some money into it, what the value would be after they put the money in.
Okay. Lucy? 1 second.
So everything that Cathy said, plus she said something about a team. I don't have a team, but I do have a team behind me of GRA, title, and everybody else that works together to get it to the closing table. So that's what puts me apart from everyone else. And then the buyer's guide, which shows your value, because buyers and sellers, they have no clue what we do. They really don't. So the buyers, they think we show them the house, we write the contract, and we're done.
Right.
But we're not. We're not done. We're there all the way through. So the buyer's guide shows them that, what we're doing every day.
Right, and
Communication.
you had mentioned earlier that you send that out when you're sending the agreement over to them to be signed, which is awesome. Mark, you want to add anything?
Sure, and on top of that, again, I'm very analytical, so I break down numbers. So we cut the clients that are like, they're getting too high or they're cutting that number too close. We can find them the same house in a town or two over, and the way to offset is the taxes. If I can find your house, taxes are $2,000, $3,000 less, well, that's a win-win. And the questions we are getting lately about the transportation, I have that down to the system. The bus, the train, the ferry, I know where the ferry goes, how fast it goes, where it goes, what time you're gonna be on Wall Street, or you're gonna
See, we're not in South Jersey. We still have mass transit.
You're going to 34th Street, now you have the ferry in South Amboy. So all of that in a bunch.
Okay, question here.
Hi, yes, thank you for being in front of the panel. It seems like you guys have a lot of experience, which I'm soaking up a lot of. My question is, as a new agent, somebody who's coming in to the profession, right, and having clients and trying to navigate this whole profession, and how would you say, for example, Grace, you have a template or a script that you send stuff out, transactions, yada, yada, yada. To somebody that's new to the agent, we don't know that, right? How do we get that information, and how do we learn to do the right things, right? Because you all have this, you all experience this. Right now, I have a few clients that I'm looking to find a house for, right? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, am I doing the CMA right? Wow, am I doing this right? Well, Moxie, this is fantastic, but how do I navigate all these resources where maybe you guys have 10, 15 years of experience, where somebody coming in, or how do I kind of sell myself so that, I'm a hard worker. I will go 48, 72 hours straight to learn something, but I don't know what to learn if I don't know what to learn. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think I get where you're going. Before you guys answer, look, for a new agent, right, you kind of answered your own question, right? You may not have the experience that they have. You may not have the knowledge and the tools and the systems already in place as a new agent. But you answered your own question by saying, I'm a go-getter. I'll go 48 hours. I'll find it. I'll get the job done, right? So with that gumption, go to your team leaders. Go to the agents in your office and listen and learn, right? Get the answers, because you can get those answers, and to the point where you'll feel comfortable about presenting that same information to a buyer and or a seller in that case. Because new agents, it's damn hard out there for any new agent in this business today, especially with all these new law changes, right? But it's hard for a new agent to go out and get a listing, let alone secure a buyer, because you're saying, well, what expertise do I have? I'm brand new to this business. Well, you say to the buyer, we're going to do this together. We're going to learn together. That's how it goes, right? They'll appreciate that more than you trying to fluff your way through something. So, but utilize your team, your staff in your office to get the information that you're not comfortable with. Don't be afraid not to ask the question. Go ahead, Mark.
We're training someone right now. I like Moxie, but to put it in your pocket every day, and it's a great tool. I use it all the time. Gina always talks about the 30-second elevator conversation. I probably have 17 of them a day. Okay? RPR. Master it. You can pull out any property in the state of New Jersey. It will give you all the details of the house. We go into houses and we know what we're looking at, where we're going. And then they'll ask, where's the value? I can pull up the whole neighborhood. And you can show everything. That's a great tool. And other thing to do is work with someone in the office. Just absorb. Just absorb all the information, and you'll get there.
And half is better than nothing.
You also have to market yourself.
Right.
You have to spend money to make money.
Right.
So you have to market yourself.
We're probably making the
I mean,
difference between all this, but I'm sorry. I jumped
Go ahead.
over
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry.
I don't mean to take up everybody's time.
No,
I
it's
don't
okay.
want it to be about me. I apologize.
You know, open houses, sit open houses with the listing agent and just absorb. And I took, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, there's a class, I don't know if they still do it online, Jeannie Rose used to do it, like working with buyers, and it was like a 4 or 5, 6. I learned so much, and I've been doing it for 5 years already, and the one thing that I really took out of that was be prepared when you go out to show a house. Don't just say, you know, oh, honey, I gotta call, I'm gonna go show a house, okay, let's get on. No, like, I was in another town, I didn't know, so you gotta research the house before you're going out. You need to, even if you're not, you can appear to be the expert.
So can I say I do that, and that's great advice, and I've heard that before, so that I do that as well. And when it comes to like CMAs and stuff like that, I go to the RPR and I look at it, and then I'm on the GSMLS tutorial website, and they're like, well, listen, what are the adjustments to an extra bathroom, or how much more can you add to a bathroom and stuff like that. Those are the little pieces of the nitty and gritties that I'm trying to.
Well, Garden State MLS is your biggest problem, so.
Jeff Otto.
Right.
Look into Jeff Otto.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Jeff Otto.
Jeff Otto.
Jeff Otto?
He will teach you how to do a CMA better than any other tool.
And sometimes he
Like
gives
the
you.
adjustments,
Yes.
bathroom.
He'll tell you what they're.
It's all that.
Versus like a brand new bathroom versus an old
And
bathroom, how much do I add to that?
He'll still have one this year. He'll have a,
Jeff Otto.
I'll give it to you after.
Thank you.
I'll give you all that.
All right, let's get back on track here.
Sorry about that.
You're good, you're good. So have you guys received any pushback from buyers when you're representing them in terms of the compensation, right? So you have them sign an agreement with X percentage, right? But we all know that the agreement also says, hey, only show me properties where the seller's compensating, or don't, are you getting pushback where your buyers only want to see properties that are offering compensation where they're not obligated to pay whatever amount you're putting in that agreement?
Well, we had people ask us that, and in the beginning, we had a couple ask us that, and we let them know that that's limiting the homes that you're going to see, because there's also a home shortage down, the seller's market. There's hardly any homes out there, so you're gonna tell me you want to just see homes that are giving out compensation? That may take away the home of your dreams. So we sort of had that conversation before we even take about. It eliminates that problem.
That's same for all of you? Same for all of you?
Fortunately, I haven't had any pushback, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just always explain to them that we're gonna write it into the agreement, the contract, and it nets, the seller nets, and, I don't let that make you walk away from the house of your dreams.
Okay. We kind of already answered the next question, which was, have you closed any buyer transactions where they have paid your entire fee because there was no compensation being offered? And I think you guys all answered that. So what advice do you have for those that still are maybe struggling with the buyer agency agreements? Share some best practices.
Just know the agreement. You need to know, before you ask somebody to sign it, you need to know what's in that agreement.
Yeah.
Just familiarize yourself with the agreement, feel confident about what you're talking about, know what you're talking about, and you shouldn't have any pushback.
Go ahead, Grace.
So when I started with the buyer's agency agreement, again, my whole thing was to make sure that whoever's signing this is comfortable with what they're signing. I didn't want pushback. I wanted them to be really comfortable. So I kind of treated it like an online dating. Okay, so you start with online dating. I don't online date, I'm married. What my daughter did. And you talk, you text. Okay, we talk and text with the client, the potential client, their customer now. So we're talking and texting, and then we're emailing, and then they sign the buyer's agency agreement. If we're gonna go out to see maybe 2 properties, if it's 2 specific properties, I might just do a 1 week. Or, because we haven't met yet. We don't know if we're a match. So I'm gonna put either the properties, or I'm gonna do like a 7 to 14 day buyer's agency agreement. And then by the time we're done with our appointments that day, we have a conversation, and I let them know we're gonna have a conversation. We have a conversation about, hey, how do you think this worked out? You know, and we come to an agreement of we're gonna now sign a 30-day buyer agency agreement. And it can only be canceled within, it has to be canceled within 14 days. So they can't just change their mind in 3 and then go with someone else. It's 14 days, and then it automatically renews every 30 days until either we close on a house or they've given me written notification for 14 days. So I kind of go, it's the first meet of the online date, and then we decide we're gonna go out on a date a couple of more times. Once I write a contract, we're engaged. That's it. You're not going anywhere else. And that's how I treat it, and it works really well, and it adds a little bit of levity to it, and people are really comfortable with it. So it's worked really well for me.
Mark?
I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. Turn it off. Yeah, we can get pushback, but, you know, we tell the buyers, we say, listen, there's a great chance the sellers are giving compensation. So it might be a small percentage, it might be 0.5%, might be 1%. Now listen, you guys are getting outbid on these properties, 50, 60, 70,000. If we could get you a house, and you had to pay $7,000, $8,000 difference to Cathy and I, you gonna take the house?
All of Mark's answers are always about the money.
I try to save money.
It's the dollars in him.
Listen, when I got into this, I've been married to Cathy for 35 years, so I've been in this background. Even when we buy houses, right? Buy houses, you buy investments, it's all about the dollar, okay? You're buying the biggest investment of your life. You're gonna sit and bitch about $6,000, $7,000 in this market? And if you could get a house, what happens when we close, right? They're thrilled. It's not even, it doesn't, right, they're excited.
Right.
I'm about the dollars.
Give us some advice.
I look at this as, this is what we have to do. This is the law now, this is what we have to do. Let's all get over ourselves. So we're very good salespeople, we're good at listing presentations, it's just a different form of a presentation. And we're worth it. And doesn't it feel good to say to buyers, like, yes, I get paid.
That's
You know,
right.
And for the agents that are just starting, you're just starting out using this. This is all you know, and that's kind of a plus.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to folks who've been doing this for 15
Right.
years and it feels a little awkward. So you're just starting out with this, so that's almost a plus. And it's the law, so we have to do it, and that's how I'm doing it.
Luce, anything to add? Kath?
I was just gonna say, you have to embrace it and get familiar with it and get your speech down about it and send out the email ahead of time, let them look it over, tell them if they have any questions. They need to meet with you. Sometimes the buyers come into the office and sit with them and explain everything to them. Sometimes it's worth doing all that.
And to add to that, right?
And the closing word goes to Mark.
No, and to add to that, you're hiring us to find you a home. We're gonna find you a home, we're gonna get it done. Listen to us, just stay with us and we'll get it done. To the best that we can, the best price for you, but we'll get it done. And we've closed 2 clients in the last 2 months, 2.5 years, and 2 years and 2 months. They could have bought houses for $500,000, one closed for $750,000, the other one closed for $665,000. They both said to Cathy at the closing to us, I wish I would have listened to you in 2023. You know, and it's, that's what I'm about.
Can I have the closing word?
You most certainly can, Deanna.
No, I just wanted to
You
say-
traveled the furthest.
But thank you for inviting us. I was nervous, right, because I don't consider buyer agency to be my forte. But when we all met 10 minutes before this started, we've never met before, it's very clear that we all operate very differently. And we all present the agreements differently, we all work with our clients very differently, and I think you just have to be true to what you're comfortable doing and how you do it.
Exactly.
And, you know what I mean? So for me, it's all my templates and sending emails. It just, you have to work the way you're comfortable working. And your buyer will feed off of that, right?
And we'll end it right there. Give this panel a great round of applause. Thank you, you guys.
guys.